Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a bookshelf tour, thus why I am standing up in front of my bookshelf. I did a bookshelf tour actually not that long ago. I think I did one in December of 2020, but I have a new shelf and my organizational situation has changed so much and I've gotten so many new books. So without further ado, let's get into the bookshelf tour. Okay, so this is the main bookshelf. Up at the very top, I just have some artwork as well as some fake plants. And then we get into the main shelf situation. So just talking briefly about the overall organization of the shelves. This top shelf is all of my translated literature as well as my Shirley Jackson collection. And then moving down, we sort of have a rainbow bookshelf situation. It's not necessarily in rainbow order, but it is color coordinated. So I have a sort of blue going into green, going into blue and pink, going into pink, and then I have sort of a red and blue thing happening, and that transitions into red, red and white, black, black and white, gray, and then I just have a whole white stack. So it made sense in my head when I was organizing it. I don't really know if it makes sense now that I'm saying it out loud, but that's the basic setup of the shelf. So now I'm just going to go through each of the books individually on each of the shelves. So starting with my top shelf here, I have this beautiful illustrated edition of Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, The Story of My Teeth by Valeria Lucelli. Then I have a whole bunch of Charco Press translated lit. I have Die My Love and Feeble-Minded by Ariana Harwicks, The German Room by Carla Meliandi, Loop by Brenda Lozano, and then I have Dead Girls as well as The Wind That Lays Waste by Selva Amata. This is a new purchase, but it is called Aquarium, and I do not know how to pronounce the name, but it was translated from Hebrew. I have two Friedrich Bachmann books. I have A Man Called Uwe and Anxious People. I have Long Live the Post Horn, and again, I don't want to butcher this author's name. This one is called Armada, and again, I do not know how to pronounce the author's name. The Blue Fox by Sian. This is an Icelandic author, and I'm super excited to read this one. Also, the cover is one of my favorite covers of all time. The Vegetarian by Han Kang. Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-ju. The Hole by Hee-young Pyun. And then I have Before the Coffee Gets Cold and Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I have Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sokigawa. Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And then this really cute one called The Guest Cat, which I also don't know how to pronounce the author's name. So that's all of my translated lit. It kind of goes from translated from Spanish to sort of various different languages, and then I have all of my Asian translations. So on the shelf there are also a few little decorations. The first one is this little wood block that is a wood-burned print of an artwork that I made. And my boyfriend made this for me years ago, so I like to display it up here. And then I just have this little fake collection of succulents because I cannot keep a plant alive to save my life. So this is the beginning of my Shirley Jackson collection. So I have a couple of Penguin Classics editions. I have The Bird's Nest, The Road Through the Wall, The Sundial, and Hangs a Man. This used copy of The Witchcraft of Salem Village. And I also have these two beautiful editions of The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle. They have really intriguing artworks and they both have deckled edges, and I just love these so much. I have her little nonfiction sort of essay collections about her family, and they are Life Among the Savages and Raising Demons. I have this collection called Let Me Tell You, The Lottery and Other Stories, Shirley Jackson, A Rather Haunted Life by Ruth Franklin. This is just a giant biography of Shirley Jackson. Shirley by Susan Scarf Merrill. So this is a novelization of Shirley Jackson's life. And then finally, I have this graphic novel version of The Lottery, which is a very famous short story by Shirley Jackson, and it was illustrated by her grandson, Miles Hyman. So this part doesn't just have her original work, it also has sort of texts that relate to Shirley Jackson or that are about her. So that is the first shelf on my main bookshelf. All right, moving on to my second shelf. This is the beginning of the color coordinated section, and this is basically just fiction. All of this section is fiction, different kinds of fiction. I have like short stories, I have a graphic novel here. I think that's the only graphic novel here, but I have a bunch of short stories, I have novellas, and then I have full-length novels. So the shelf starts off with dark blue, and I have Blankets by Craig Thompson. This is my absolute favorite graphic novel of all time. Beautiful black and white art style. I have Hysteria by Jessica Gross, Foe by Ian Reid, Creature by Amina Kane, and now we're really getting into the green section. I have The Need by Helen Phillips, Bad Behavior by Mary Gateskill, Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, An American Marriage by Tayari Jones, Women Talking by Miriam Towles, A Single Thread by Tracy Chevalier, Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, Days of Distraction by Alexandra Chang, and Milk, Blood, Heat by Dantiel W. Moniz. So now transitioning from blue to pink, we have this blue and pink book, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, Mothers by Chris Power, and then going into black and pink, we have Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Gyasi, Writers and Lovers by Lily King. Then going into hot pink, we have This Is Pleasure by Mary Gateskill, My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh, and The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenis. And then this transitionary book between the pink and the red and blue, we have sort of a reddish pink book, which is Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas. Starting off with the red and blue, I have Mary Ventura and the Ninth Kingdom, which is just a little short story by Sylvia Plath, Indelicacy by Amina Kane, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman. So that is my second shelf on my main bookshelf. Okay, then we have the third shelf on my bookshelf. This one kind of goes from red to red and white to red and black to black, gray, and then the white stack. So starting off on this side, I have Clara and the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, Herland and the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Collector by John Fowles, Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, The Harpy by Megan Hunter, Cat Person and Other Stories by Kristen Rapinian, Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, The Other Mother by Carol Goodman, which is actually signed, The Awakening by Kate Chopin, I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid, McGlue by Otessa Moshfegh. Then I have Matilda as well as Frankenstein the 1818 text by Mary Shelley, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, Saving Max by Antoinette Van Houten, Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan, of course, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, still haven't tackled this one, and then I have The Complete Stories of Flannery O'Connor. Over here I have this adorable 3D printed bunny, and then I have my white stack. So I am not going to take down each of these, but I will tell you what they are. So I have The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, The Complete Short Stories of Ernest Hemingway, Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty by James Thurber, History of Wolves by Emily Fridland, Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and then I have two Steinbecks. I have East of Eden and The Grapes of Wrath, Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss, The Strange Bird by Jeff Vandermeer, Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor, The Unchangeable Spots of Leopards by Christopher Jansma, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So that is my third shelf on my main bookshelf. And then I have my bottom shelf. It's really close to the ground, so I'm just gonna hold the camera, so excuse my shaking hands. But on this shelf, I like to keep this little container of seashells that I got in Cape May, New Jersey. So this shelf starts off with yellow and it goes to a sort of blue and tan situation, and then it goes into tan and black and brown, and then it transitions over to orange and then orange and white. So a little bit confusing, but it does look pretty aesthetically pleasing on the shelf, so I am pretty happy with it. So on this shelf, I have Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan, The Shame by McKenna Goodman, Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, Sourdough, also by Robin Sloan, and I have Normal People as well as Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, The Iliad by Homer, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filia, Promising Young Women by Suzanne Scanlon. This one's called Rag, and I have no idea how to pronounce that name. The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. Brooklyn, again, don't know how to pronounce that name. I have The Odyssey, also by Homer. Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. Circe by Madeline Miller. A Lonely Man by Chris Power. Homesick for Another World by Ottessa Moshfegh. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. And finally, The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. So this is my second shelf. On the top of my bookshelf, I have a basket of bookmarks. There's just a bunch of different bookmarks in there. And then I have these adorable bookends that make a bicycle, and between those bookends, I have my Shakespeare collection. On the rest of the shelf, the top shelf is all of my Wings of Fire books. And then the bottom two shelves are sort of a jumble of things. They have all of my children's and YA literature, all of my poetry, my essay collections, and all of my nonfiction. So starting off up here with all of my Shakespeare collection, I have the Shakespeare book, which just has a bunch of information about each of the Shakespeare plays. I have this kind of movie cover copy of Romeo and Juliet. And then I have these Oxford editions of Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and Hamlet. These were all for a class that I took. And then we get into all of the Pelican Shakespeare editions, which are my absolute favorite editions of Shakespeare, and I want to collect all of them eventually. So I have Henry V, Hamlet, Julius Caesar, Othello, King Lear, Love's Labour's Lost, Much Ado About Nothing, The Tempest, The Comedy of Errors, A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, and The Taming of the Shrew. Okay, on to the first shelf of this kind of side bookshelf. These are all Wings of Fire books, but on the shelf I have my drumsticks from when I saw Imagine Dragons in concert. And then I have this signed book plate that Tui T. Sutherland signed, and I have it framed. I have this beautiful leather notebook with a dragon on the cover that my boyfriend got me, and basically in here I catalog all of the books that I own. And then holding everything up, I have this globe bookend. So first up, I have two books stacked on top, and you might be wondering why I have two of the same exact book, and it is because I went out and purchased this one the day it was released, and then my boss at the library ended up getting one of these, and we didn't need it, so she ended up giving it to me. We couldn't put this into circulation at the library because it is basically a workbook full of like prompts and things that you need to write about, and we can't really have a book that has writing prompts in it circulating because it's going to come back full of writing. So I ended up getting a second copy, and you know, I'm totally fine with that. So starting off with book one of the Wings of Fire series, I have The Dragonette Prophecy, The Lost Heir, The Hidden Kingdom, The Dark Secret, The Brightest Night, Legends Darkstalker, Moon Rising, Winter Turning, Escaping Peril, Talons of Power, Darkness of Dragons, The Lost Continent, The Hive Queen, and The Poison Jungle. Then I have the other Legends book. This is Dragon Slayer. And then I have a few hardcovers. So my boyfriend and I want to collect all of the hardcovers as well as the paperback editions. So I have the hardcovers of The Hive Queen as well as The Poison Jungle. And then I have the hardcover for book 14, The Dangerous Gift, because there is no paperback edition out currently. And then I have the 4 Wings of Fire graphic novels. So there's book 1, book 2, book 3, and book 4. Alright, moving right along, we have the second shelf on this side shelf. So this one has a couple of different things on it. I have all of my children's literature. I have a lot more children's lit in my basement, but this is just what I keep on my shelf. I have some YA literature, a whole bunch of poetry, and then my essay collections. So starting over here with this stack, I have The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster, Surviving the Applewhites by Stephanie S. Tolan, Wish Tree by Catherine Applegate, Poemsia by Lang Leave, Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, as well as Where the Sidewalk Ends and A Light in the Attic, also by Shel Silverstein. And then I have Journal 3, which is basically a remake of the Gravity Falls Journal 3 that is featured in the show. So then moving right along, I have 3 copies of The Fault in Our Stars. I have this tiny little copy that's so adorable. And then I have the hardcover edition as well as the movie cover edition. I have several books by Elizabeth Acevedo. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. I have The Poet X, With the Fire on High, and then this signed first edition of Clap When You Land. And then next I have all of my poetry collections. So I have Dearly by Margaret Atwood, To Drink Coffee with a Ghost by Amanda Lovelace, The Sun and Her Flowers, as well as Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur, Felicity by Mary Oliver, as well as Devotions, which is selected poems of Mary Oliver, because Mary Oliver is my favorite poet of all time. This little anthology called There Are Girls Like Lions, and then this tiny little collection, The Red Wheelbarrow and Other Poems by William Carlos Williams. And then we transition into my essay collections. I have a signed edition of The Anthropocene Reviewed, which is John Green's brand new essay collection. A Woman Looking at Men, Looking at Women, and again, I do not know how to pronounce this author's name. How to Write an Autobiographical Novel by Alexander Chee. Bluets by Maggie Nelson, one of my favorite books of all time. Upstream by Mary Oliver. The Hatred of Poetry by Ben Lerner. 7 Kinds of People You Find in Bookshops by Sean Bythell, Packing My Library by Alberto Manuel, Intimations by Zadie Smith, Morning Star by Anne Hood, Create Dangerously by Albert Camus, and then I have 3 short essays by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I have We Should All Be Feminists, Dear Ijewele, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions, and Notes on Grief. And then this shelf is really low to the ground, so I'm just going to hold the camera. But I have a bunch of books that relate to astrology and tarot. And then just some reference books for cooking. And then here we get into some nonfiction. So I have Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, Back to the Garden, The Story of Woodstock, Ted Bundy, Conversations with a Killer, Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon, Creating Flannery O'Connor by Daniel Moran, Literary Witches by Katie Horan, Monster She Wrote by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson, March Sisters by a bunch of different authors, including Carmen Maria Machado, who I absolutely love, Choice Words, Writers on Abortion, edited by Annie Finch, Twisted, The Tangled History of Black Hair Culture by Emma DeBeery, Girls and Sex by Peggy Orenstein. I have From Here to Eternity, as well as Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doty. And then we go into my little memoir section. So I have Haben by Haben Girma, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, How to Be a Good Creature by Cy Montgomery, Sex Object by Jessica Valenti, Idiot by Laura Clary. I have Half Broke Horses, as well as The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. And finally, Bird's Art Life by Kyle McClear. Alright, that is the end of my very extensive bookshelf tour. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!